Well, Toho baby, I don't know how you do it. Shin Gojira is a film by the Toho Company and is the first Godzilla film to be released since 2005's Godzilla Final Wars. Or I guess it's the first Japanese Godzilla film. We had the Gareth Edwards film, which I loved, but this is more of a return to form for the Godzilla franchise. Shin Gojira is the story of Godzilla making his first ever rampage on Japan. And unlike Gareth Edwards' Godzilla, this Godzilla is a straight-up villain. Godzilla comes to Tokyo with one goal in mind: to destroy Tokyo. There's no monster fighting in this movie, there's no righteous savior of humanity. This is a straight-up disaster movie about the destruction and decimation that Godzilla can bring upon humanity. And if you saw my reaction video a few months back, I was kind of on the fence about this movie. I heard it was going to be really strange. I wasn't sure if I was going to like it enough, because I am a pretty big fan of the Godzilla who is the savior of humanity. I like the hero, I like the animal, I like that Godzilla. And after seeing Shin Gojira, was my opinion changed? You bet. This movie is awesome. Guys, I loved Shin Gojira. But instead of just raving about how great it was, let me tell you why. First off, the aesthetic. Shin Gojira has the amazing ability to blend both the realistic elements of the world with the larger-in-life elements that are Godzilla. And let me explain that. So, a lot of this movie is a lot of politics. There's a lot of politicians walking around. There are a lot of normal people doing their daily thing, trying to get their jobs done. And this is expertly juxtaposed with this giant demon walking around Tokyo. And I say demon because Godzilla in this movie does not look like an animal. Yes, he resembles a dinosaur, he resembles a reptile for most of the film, but the design of Godzilla is a lot more demonic, it's a lot more sinister. He looks almost like a creature in pain, like he's crying out, and this is almost this gut-wrenching reaction to some horrible pain that has been done to him. So you almost get this notion that looking at Godzilla, he will stop at nothing in his wreckage of Tokyo. The CG work is extremely impressive, especially for a foreign film. Now, at first it started off, and it took me a little bit getting used to, because Japanese CG is a lot different to American CG, but once the movie started going and I really felt myself invested in it, I was fully locked in. I kind of lost track of what was CG and what wasn't. And let me tell you, the CG was a great route to go, because it really served to blend, like I said, the realistic with the larger-than-life, because they were actually able to use actual shots of Tokyo for the Godzilla scenes. So you actually saw these locales and places in Tokyo that people probably went to every day. And that really brought the personal element of Tokyo out in this. Like, this place actually is somewhere important for these people. I'm not Japanese, but I likened it, the movie actually does this at one point, I likened it to like if Godzilla was rampaging in New York, how personal that would feel to Americans. And I guess that brought me into it, you know, thinking that this is someone's home. And I guess using CG instead of just having these miniature sets brought that home for me too. Also, I have to commend the writing in this film. Now, this movie had definite potential to be extremely depressing without any type of light in it. And I guess that would have been cool, because like, the first Godzilla movie is kind of like that. But they make a smart choice in interweaving a lot of humor in this movie. Yes, this movie is a sobering take on the relationship between humanity and nature, but it is also a biting satire of the failings of modern bureaucracy. Also, the Godzilla disaster in this movie really resembles the disasters that have been happening in Japan, such as the tsunami, the nuclear disaster, all that stuff. It's really, really bringing it home. And I imagine if I had been personally there, like, think about it like this. As an American, like 9/11. Like, we've seen so much 9/11 imagery in film. I feel like this is the first time we've ever seen another country's disaster in film. It personalizes it. And it makes you almost think, okay, especially for Americans, we're not the only people out there. And other people deal with disasters too. I feel like that's another theme of this movie, is that your country always wants to focus on itself, and your people always want to focus on themselves. And it's not selfish, it's just natural. But there is more people out there that need help there, and I think that's another theme of this movie, is unity. Unity in one's country and unity as a global community. And finally, the best aspect of this movie that brought it home for me were the characters. what this movie essentially boils down to is a story about human struggle. This is a story about trying to overcome an enemy that with all logical pretense should be able to wipe us off the map. But as we all know, humanity is not a logical creature. We're not a logical species. So we keep pushing until we win. And that's what this movie's about, is that willingness to overcome the odds no matter what tragedy, no matter what happens, that ability to move forward. And overall, I was expecting to come out of this movie extremely depressed, but when I came out of this movie pretty happy. It's a really, really positive film towards the end. And I think the movie really could tread carefully in not making itself too depressing or too happy, but I think it's overall a story about picking yourself up. And there's a great line towards the end about when they have to rebuild Tokyo, and the guy goes, "The city built it up from disaster before. It'll do it again." And I love that line, and there are actually some really great lines in this movie. I'd love to be able to hear what the actual literal, what it means in Japanese, even though I only had subtitles, but as we know, translations get kind of muddy. But I'd love to learn Japanese one day and kind of go back and figure out what they're actually saying, because the Japanese language is beautiful, the culture is beautiful. And I'd love to see what they're doing in this. I'd love to see what they're actually saying. I feel like it would be beautiful. And now let's get to I wouldn't even call them negative section, I call it a disclaimer for just movie going. This movie's not for everyone. This movie is weird. Godzilla goes to some weird crap in this movie that if you're a casual Godzilla fan, you're going to be off-put by this. Look, if you love Gareth Edwards, but because of the world of Godzilla, as I do, King Ghidorah, all that stuff, but you're not too fond of just the idea of what Godzilla originally was intended to be, which was this disaster. He's a force of nature. He's not good. Then you probably won't dig this as much as a hardcore Godzilla fan would, who's a huge fan of 1954. But if you go into it with an open mind and just think, okay, I liked Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. I want to try I want to see what the purists think. I liken it to this. If you were a fan, for me, I used to be a fan of the old James Bond movies, Roger Moore, Sean Connery, all those guys. I still am. But when Daniel Craig first came out as Bond, I was like, I don't know if I like this. It's too dark. It's too gritty. I don't know if I like this. But once I realized and thought about it, that Daniel Craig is most like Ian Fleming's Bond. And if you think about Godzilla Resurgence or Shin Gojira or whatever like that, I think you'll like it a lot more, because this movie is what Godzilla was originally intended to be. Gareth Edwards' Godzilla is what Godzilla has become. It's what his legend has become. It's the hero. It's the cultural icon. This is him in his rawest, most pure form. And just one more disclaimer. This movie, once again, is a human drama. It's not really a monster movie. I mean, yes, it's not without its monster thrill, it's not without the monster essence, but at its heart, this is a movie about human survival. This is a movie about overcoming odds. So if you go into it expecting that, not expecting Godzilla, Godzilla destruction porn, I think you'll really enjoy it, as I did. And now, guys, I guess you can guess what I'm going to give this movie. Godzilla Resurgence, Shin Gojira, or whatever you want to call it, is certainly worth watching several times, and is a godsend. No. A Godzilla send. Alright guys, now have a great week. Go see some movies if you can. I know you're busy, whatever. And, as always, keep it nerdy.